takes it all the way.
Upended at the 35-yard line. Emanuel.
Kyle Emanuel.
We love this player, the way he plays. Man, this guy makes plays.
Is sacked by Kyle Emanuel, the winner of the Buck Buchanan Award. That goes to the best defensive player in the country.
Welcome back. We haven't heard that intro in forever to our guy Kyle Emanuel. As you see a live look here at Folsom Field. The Bison football team arrived, I'd say, about 6-7 minutes ago to get their first look at where they'll be playing here later tonight. You know already the first question. I know I covered you your entire time. I don't remember you guys ever doing this early.
No, as soon as I saw him walking on the field, I was like, okay, Dom's going to ask me about this. Did we ever do this?
No
and you're
way.
right. Yeah, at
Yeah.
NDSU, I don't think we ever did this.
Yeah.
I was trying to even think back to in the NFL, like, did we ever do something like this? I don't know if it was this early. Now, I will say this. When you have a night game, it's not like high school where you have to go to school all day, right? Like, there's not a lot to do. What do? You don't want to just sit around because then you get kind of groggy and it just doesn't end up playing out well. So what do you do? So I actually like this as a little bit of switch up. I don't think you're going to be seeing NDSU do this every single road game. But in terms of, look, let's go see the scene. Let's set up where we're going to play. If you want to take a picture, whatever, let's get that out of the way. Let's get you up and moving. So I don't mind it.
Yeah.
I like that they're here.
It's a little different from the usual formula that they've gone through. And this is – we've been talking about this, you and I, since Deion Sanders got hired. I was visiting with Mike about this in the first hour of the show, and now it's here. You also brought up the point, 3 of the last 4 Bison road games, we've been in a mountain setting. We got another one. I don't think as loud as Montana. The mountains aren't nearly as close as what we had in Missoula last December.
But in terms of scenery
and
where they've got to play, I mean, I guess selfishly for myself and you and just all of us that get to cover this team, to be out here, this beautiful setting. For me, this is really special to be here. I grew, you know this very well. I grew up a Nebraska fan. Obviously, a huge rivalry. Seen a million games on TV of this stadium, and now I get to be here in person.
Colorado, pretty special as well. NFL touchdown was scored in Denver against the Broncos in your Charger playing days.
Yeah, I had some good memories here. I think that was the only one we won. I was telling you last night, we played Denver the year they won the Super Bowl, and we should have beat them. It was like the last game of the year. Peyton Manning came in and brought them back, and they won that game. But, beat Colorado State here.
Yes.
Had my one and only touchdown. Funny, Billy Turner actually sent me that video not that long ago and said, I'm faster than you. So that's still a thing. But, yeah, I've had some good, some not-so-good memories here in Colorado for sure.
We're going to tap into this later on Bison Pregame Live of your experience in these FBS games, played in 4. You won all 4. That alone, that record is remarkable in itself. But just the aura of it, Kyle, going into it, what do you remember the mindset, knowing full well, especially with Kansas State and Iowa State, 2 teams you grew up watching?
Well, look, I think as a player, you always, and as a coaching staff, you always want to be like, it's another game. We're going to prepare the same way, and you did. But it's impossible for me to deny that there was some extra motivation, energy, juice, whatever you want to call it. It was just different. I like a lot of guys that I played with. I wanted to go play at Nebraska. Yeah. Some of those guys wanted to go play for Minnesota or Wisconsin, wherever it was, and you got overlooked. Now, I don't think that's the only motivating factor, but it's the fact that these are teams you grew up watching on TV. It's the big time, quote unquote, right? And the fact that you get to go play there, and then when you get to beat them. Especially for me, Kansas State and Iowa State will always, Minnesota as well. All of them will stick out, but Kansas State for sure and Iowa State, like those are 2 teams in the Big 12. Grew up watching them. Bill Snyder was there. They were coming off a Big 12 championship. That I always describe those wins as, outside of a national championship, there was no other feeling like it. You just can't describe it. The fact when everyone doubts you. Outside of the locker room, and no one thinks you have a chance to win a game, and then you go out and you prove everyone wrong, especially on national TV, it's a special feeling.
I think there's a lot to that with this team, which I'll get to in a second, but back to that point, K-State and Iowa State were also the season openers, much like this game is. So how much are you pouring in right away, and how early are you starting that, knowing full well who your season opening opponent is?
Well, I still remember very often throughout fall camp when we were playing Kansas State, it's going to be hot in Manhattan. It's going to be hot in Manhattan. And they were right.
It was definitely hot. Yeah.
We were prepared for it without a doubt. And I'm trying to think back. I know it's so easy to get caught up and get enamored with this one game because of the glitz and the glamour and everything that goes with it and all the national attention. You still do have to remember there are, in this case, 11 more games afterwards. Right. So without a doubt, we poured a lot into it. But there were still times where you'd take a day or two and maybe you look at it SDSU or you look at the next opponent. But then when you got within probably 2 weeks, it was full bore.
Yeah.
You were focused on this game and trying to find a way to win because, as you know, like we were never intimidated going into these games. Like we fully expected to go in, compete, and try and win a football game.
I want to save our next segment for all about NDSU, and I don't want to give away the clicker because that's coming up later tonight. But what you've seen on Shedeur Sanders, I asked Tim Polisic of this at his Monday press conference. He told me, Kyle, he was more impressed at how good Shedeur was in the pocket. He knew he could do when he's scrambling around. Did that come away from you on tape as well?
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, and again, we'll get into this a little bit more, but everyone talks about how good of an athlete he is, and he is. Don't get me wrong. He's Deion Sanders' son. Like he is a phenomenal athlete, but his ability to move around a pocket, a line that was leaky at best last year. I was actually just
It's a good way to describe it.
I was just looking at some of his stats. He threw 3 interceptions. That's
right.
it.
They did not
3
turn the ball over
all year last year. Getting put on his back. I think he was sacked over 50 times. So to me, it's some of the intangibles. Yes, you can go out and you can see how well he can throw the ball, but his toughness is his ability to get back up and to not turn the ball over. Throw 27 touchdowns a year ago. There's a lot to like about Shedeur Sanders, and there's a reason he's going to probably be taken within that top 5, top 10 range.
Polisic said it's the best player North Dakota State's ever going to face, has ever faced. What do you make of that? You faced some dandies.
That's so hard. That's so hard to think back on. But between him and Travis Hunter, it might be the best combo they've seen in a while.
That Shakir Bell guy was pretty good.
He was pretty good.
Tyler Lockett was pretty good.
Go down the list. There was quite a few good players that I played and that they've played since.
Hunter, you mentioned, and I want to get into him because he is as closest to what his coach used to be in the current version. I mean, he led the FBS in total snaps played. I'm not sure. Is he more dangerous at wide receiver or at corner?
I think it's corner.
Okay.
Now I didn't do a deep dive into the film, and I think he's obviously capable at both. I think if you ask a coach, you can only have him at one position. They would take him at either. But I do think he's probably better at corner.
Okay.
But yeah, again, I was looking at some stats. 7 games last year. He played over 100 snaps. I was telling you this on the plane. I don't know if I ever played over 60 once in my career. And he did 107 different times. So
that's
it speaks
amazing.
to his endurance. Again, a toughness like we talked about with Shedeur.
The offensive line being young, as a defensive lineman, especially when you're a senior year, and I look at what Dylan Hendricks is, a grown man, 23, 24 years old, going up against Jordan Seaton. Yes, he was the #1 offensive line recruit in the country. He's also 18, Kyle. Isn't there a advantage there for the Bison that they could exploit tonight?
Yeah, you would think so. And without knowing the young man, it kind of you have to wonder, is the maturity level there? And to me, it's, yes, you can have talent, but can you be on the same page? Offensive line has to work as a unit, right? You have to be on the same page. You have to know if you have a back come to. Are you full sliding? Is there a blitz pickup that you have to? There's so much that goes into playing offensive line. Obviously, I didn't play it, but I've seen and I've heard the communications that goes on, and there's so much there. So, yes, you can be a talented individual, no doubt. But when the lights come on, when it's national TV, it's the first game. There's going to be, I know you guys were talking about 10 million people watching this game. Can you be on the same page? That's what I'm going to be looking for. For an offensive line that's 5 new guys coming in, and as we already mentioned, struggled mightily last year.
Let's break. We come back. We'll get Kyle's thoughts on NDSU, not only for tonight, for this entire 2024 season. Of course, he's going to be back with me for the booth for a 4th consecutive year for our season opener, which is a week from Saturday against Tennessee State. Back live, final half hour, live here in Boulder on Hot Mic. We're back right after this. Welcome back, everybody, live on location at Folsom Field, North Dakota State, doing some pre-game warm-ups, pre-game warm-ups, Kyle Emanuel. This is unlike what we've seen before with Bison football.
Like I said, it's a long day. You're sitting around. I don't mind it. Just move around a little bit. And I don't know the exercise science behind all of this, but as I mentioned, sitting in a hotel all day, I think personally I hated it. Worst thing you can do. So why not get out here, get used to the field, get a little tiny sweat going, and get ready for the day.
Night game or day game? Would you favor one or the other? You played some primetime games in the NFL too.
It's funny because of what I just mentioned. I actually preferred the day game. It's just such a long day. I mean, don't get me wrong. I loved the lights. Friday night, like, get the high school feeling back a little bit. And so I did love that aspect of playing at night. Primetime ESPN obviously makes things a little bit better as well. No pun intended there with the primetime. But I did prefer the day game. Get up, get after it, get things going, and then you still have a little bit of the day left afterwards.
I have not had a chance to talk to you since Tim Polisic was hired as head football coach. Obviously, this is a guy you played for on the other side of the ball when Tim was here your first 3 years, then came back for your senior year. Your initial impressions, of him being the head coach, and what's that done for the Bison alumni base, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think Tim he's similar to they're not the same person, obviously, but I kind of relate them a little bit to Coach Kramer, and the fact that they can be guys that they can be loud, they can be energetic, they can be in your face, they can be demanding, but you know it's coming from a place of love. You know it's coming from a place because they love this program and they want the best for you. And I just think he was unique in that aspect. He's loud, and sometimes I describe like he's yelling, but he's not yelling because he's mad or he's angry. He's just that passionate and that energy. And I think the fan base has seen that in the last couple of months since he's been named head coach. And I think everyone that played for him, I obviously was on the other side of the ball, but just had tremendous love and appreciation for his story, where he came from, how much he appreciates NDSU and the community of Fargo. I was obviously excited. Look, I thought Tyler Roll would have been a great candidate as well. But Tim Polasek, to me, he's going to be the guy. I think he was the right choice, and he's going to be a guy that is going to kind of bring some energy a little bit to this program. And hopefully, this FBS game can do it as well. We were actually talking before this, like, it's been since 2016, the last time NDSU had an FBS win, which didn't even seem possible.
Right.
We played one since then. I understand that, but a win here tonight.
Oof.
You got Coach Polasek and the energy that he brings, a lot of excitement around.
I'll
this
go
program.
back to 11 years ago tomorrow in Manhattan, Kansas, what that did. That win got College Game Day to come to Fargo and jump-started everything. It changed everything, that win in Manhattan. It can happen again here tonight?
Yeah, I think, Minnesota, people can say what they want about it. Obviously, it was a big win, but it was Minnesota. They were a little bit down at that time. Colorado State, not in the Power 5.
Nope.
And even though we had won 2 national championships and beat 2 FBS teams, I think you're right. There was still this doubt, like, okay, are they for real on a national stage? And as soon as we beat Kansas State, it was like, oh, okay, whoa. Now we have to actually take a look at this program and what they're doing. And NDSU's already there, right? Like, it's there, but because of what we just mentioned, it's been a little bit.
Yeah.
It's been a while. A win like this, I don't know if we can totally put into words what it would do for this program.
I know you hit it with Sam on the preview show. Like, if they're able to get it, this could be number one. Just spectacle, spotlight how big it is. This could be number one.
Without a doubt.
Time.
And it's hard to say, is this the best team, the best FBS team that they beat? I
No,
don't know.
I don't believe that be the case. Yeah.
But in terms of attention, national
star
media, I know
magnitude,
you and Mike talked about it. It's going to be on every single talk show tomorrow if they win this game. I don't even think it's a question in my mind. This would be, in terms of impact, this would be number one.
I'm going to go back to that Iowa State game because I asked Polasek about this. You remember, down 14-0, Iowa State came right out of the chute. What do you remember on the sideline on all that and how things settled down, especially because after that it was 34-0 after that start?
I'm not going to lie and say, like, there was some doubt that crept into our mind. It wasn't talked about. I'm not going to say there was people on the sideline
panic.
Like, oh, my gosh, we're panicking. But there was that little voice inside your head like, man, what's going on here? Like, can we beat this team? Just the smallest of doubts, and then Crockett hits that run. We get a stop, and it's like, why did I even have that thought? And I guess I'm speaking for myself. I can't speak for the entire team, but just the tiniest bit of doubt creeps in. And then because it's the first game, you settle in a little bit. And I think that's big in any FBS game. Can you weather the storm early?
Right.
As you have already mentioned, it's going to be an electric atmosphere. They're going to be fired up. It's the first game of the year. Deion Sanders he's always in the national spotlight, right? But even more so this week with the whole reporter situation. So there's going to be a lot of energy. Can you weather that storm early? Who can find the big play, similar to, I believe it was MJ Stumpf against Iowa, getting a defensive touchdown, something like that to kind of jumpstart your season and obviously the game.
Brian Schatz had the deke leader early in that game. That seemed like it changed defensively momentum in that game. Let's talk about the 2024 defense. I don't know how many times on broadcast last year we were just remarking in awe about Cole Wisniewski's play. He's obviously not here. He may not play the entire season. How big a deal on the back end is this now for the safety group that we had questions about all last season? Yeah,
right. That was the biggest talking point going into last year, and a lot of it was centered around Cole Wisniewski. And, hey, can he make the jump from linebacker to strong safety? I find it difficult sometimes to fully explain how much of an impact an injury can have because it's always slightly different, right, with whoever it might be, and from a leadership standpoint, from obviously they'll still be in the locker room, but just having that guy in the field, to me, this is a big one.
Yes, there's no doubt.
The obvious, but to be in the back end, to be a little bit of the quarterback of that defense, strong safety is a position where you can do a little bit of everything. You might be down in the box, and you might be part of the run fit in an 8-man box. You might be covering a tight end one-on-one in man-to-man situations. You might be playing a deep half, and you got to be able to track a ball. You might be one-on-one with the receiver. Like, there's just so much that goes into it. And I think we always said when I was playing, like, safety along with Mike linebacker from a mental standpoint might be one of the hardest positions to play. So a guy like Ryan Jones, can you get go? Obviously, he got a little bit of playing time last year, but this is a game where this is going to be a test. Look, Colorado wants to throw the football. They run it a lot last year.
This is not the game you want to have a test at the back end, though, is my point.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
If it was a running team or not necessarily the athletes they have, I'd feel a heck of a lot better at that position.
So that was my media version answer that I gave you. The player version is no one cares.
Yep.
No one cares that you've had an injury.
Yep.
You got to find a way to step up, and you've been practicing. You've been developing. In the weight room, in the meeting room, all of that. Now it's time to go perform.
Darius Gibbons is a guy I keep an eye on as well. He had a great spring. He emerged on special teams. It's time. You know this, after going through the redshirt year and playing a bit, now it's time to contribute. It is for each him and Jones to see what they can get.
Without a doubt.
Here.
You can't make the excuse anymore that you're young. You should have a good understanding.
You're in third year in the program.
Yes, you have a new defensive coordinator in Grant Olson, but he's been around. I can't imagine there's too many wholesale changes, so you should have a good idea of what's going on. And he's a guy that, just talk about run fit. I feel like he's been a guy that's been described as he's a rocket. When he goes down, when he goes, right? And he has the opportunity to make some plays, especially in the run game. So I'm excited to see him. I'm excited for Ryan Jones. Look, this is a player talking like, be excited for the opportunity. You're going to go play Colorado and Deion Sanders.
He was when I visited with him.
Sanders, take advantage of it. The last thing you want to do is be mentally thinking about, oh my gosh, like I can't believe it. No,
that's the worst thing.
Let that go away
and
just enjoy this opportunity. You may never have anything like this again in your life.
I'll give you another guy in the linebacker room, Nathaniel Staling. We're going to see him, I think, quite a bit on the field. I think is a specific package for him in terms of rotating guys at linebacker.
Well, he's a guy that I've been talking with Grant Olson about for, I feel
at least a
couple of years, and he's always been excited about his ability. I think he kind of fits that mold as what you would see as a traditional. He kind of reminds me maybe a little bit of a Nick DeLuca type. They're excited about him. We've seen him a little bit in mop-up duty at times. But, again, a guy who's been in the program a little bit and another opportunity in a big-time game to see what he can do.
Last thing before we go to your old position group at defensive end. Give me a sense of guys there. Loshaka Rokes is back. We haven't seen Hunter Zenz play yet. Dylan Hendricks is back. Cole Menz had a really nice season 2 years ago. How big does that group have to be? Not only tonight, but all season long.
Yeah, I think let's start with tonight. I think especially tonight. We just talked about how they've struggled on the offensive line. I think Shedeur Sanders, I don't know if we've seen him have time in the pocket. If we do, what's that going to look like? It might be scary, right? So without a doubt, them along with the defensive line. But yeah, you mentioned all the guys there. Obviously, Carlton Littlejohn, a very good friend of mine, coaching the defensive ends now. I've chatted with him a little bit. I think you're going to see a mix of all 5 of those guys. But I look at the 2 you mentioned right off the top, Dylan Hendricks, Loshaka Rokes, both guys that have played a lot of football. I thought Dylan Hendricks had a really good last half of the season. And you already mentioned this as well, going up against a freshman tackle. One of them will be, can you take advantage of a new offensive line? And I think it's critical in this game, no matter how you get it done, whether it's a defensive end, whether it's bringing more pressure than normal. I think you have to affect Shedeur Sanders. And as you'll see in the clicker later on, he handles it pretty well. So you got to get to him, but you got to get him to the ground as well.
That was a big-time tease you gave us there. I appreciate that. One other note on the defensive end, Kelton McCaslin not playing. There's another young guy. Bison, I'm told, got some good news there that they're going to see him, just not right away. But McCaslin will play, and that's a guy that they have high hopes for.
Exactly, and I know you've highlighted this as well. He's a guy that you see the progression, right, and how he's developing, and a guy. So now you got 6 guys when he comes back into the fold that can play that position in a position that traditionally does roll a lot, and you're going to rotate, and especially playing at altitude a little bit, you're going to need fresh defensive ends.
It's great to see you, man. Thanks so much for doing this. I can't wait for this
year.
Long,
right?
We're back in the booth next Saturday, Kyle and I, for the Tennessee State and North Dakota State game. Of course, Kyle will be joining us later today for our Bison pregame live and Bison game day coming up later today. So rest the pipes. We got a long night of talking coming up. We come back. We'll put a bow on things here on Hot Mic. Get you ready for what's to come later today. Back at Folsom Field, we'll wrap things up right after this.